So tonight I wanted to finish up the Scion and Spellcraft Final Fantasy Commander token or Commander deck, which one of the suggested commanders was Yashodla Night Blessed. So the next card that I haven't talked about was Alphanid Liveur, probably mispronouncing that. It's a 2/4 legendary creature, an elf wizard for 3 in an island. Partner with Elijah Leavenlier. When this creature enters, target player may put Elijah Leavenlier into their hand from their library, then shuffle. Has vigilance and Eukarya. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, draw a card. Which the other um, commander you could pair this with is or partner with. I also want to say has that same ability to draw a card um, when you cast your second spell. So potentially getting 2 cards per second spell seems pretty decent. Blue Mage's Cane. It's an artifact equipment for 2 in an island. Job select. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, is a wizard in addition to its other types, and has, whenever this creature attacks, exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from defending player's graveyard. If you do, copy it. You may cast a copy by paying 3 rather than paying its mana cost. Spirit of Wallach, equip 2. So, I mean, kind of interesting. You're exiling instants or sorceries from your um, opponent's graveyard and casting them for 3. Next, we have Herm's Overseer of Elphis. It's a 2/4 legendary creature, an elder wizard for 3 in an island. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying and vigilance. Whenever you attack with 1 or more birds, scry 2. So that's kind of interesting that you're getting a bird, but in addition to flying, the bird token also has vigilance. And if you're attacking with 1 or more bird, you get to scry 2. So pretty decent. Haraskeller of the First Brood. It's a 5/5 legendary creature, an elder dragon for 4 in an island. Kind of interesting that this card's in here because recently I was seeing a post in a Facebook group where someone was saying, oh, they should have more elder dragons and they should make a commander um, format around that, even though Elder Dragon Highlander is basically Commander when, before it was known as Commander. Um, Although the original Elder Dragons for that format were 3 colors and there were 5 of them. But yeah, this guy, um, it's mono blue as opposed to the 3-color Elder Dragon. As Flying, Vigilance, War 2, Shiver's Aid. When Harass Vigor enters and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn. Observed Stasis. It's a enchantment aura for 3 in an island. Has flash, enchanted creature, and opponent controls. When this aura enters, remove enchanted creature from combat. Then draw a card for each tapped creature its controllers controls. Enchanted creature loses all ability and can't attack or block. So it almost seems like pacifism, but better, but it also, I think, costs a little bit more. Eye of Nidhogg. The legendary enchantment, an aura for 2 in a swamp, enchant creature. Enchanted creature is a black dragon with base power and toughness 4/2, has flying and death touch, and is goaded. And the reminder text is it attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able. When Eye of Nidhogg is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return it to its owner's hand. So, I mean, has potential for fun because you're um, potentially giving an opponent a 4/2 flying death touch that's going to attack something other than you. So when, a 3 or 4 um, player pod that forces one of your opponents to be attacking your opponents, and if your opponents don't have flyers, they're taking damage. If they do have flyers, um, they're trading, and potentially, you know each opponent might be killing their creatures. So win-win, it seems like. Fan Daniel Telepor Telepori Asane. A lot of these cards have really awkward names to try to pronounce, and I'm probably butchering most of them. It's a 4/5 legendary creature, an elder wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, surveil 1. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent may sacrifice a non-token creature of their choice. Each opponent who doesn't loses 2 life for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. So, I mean, that seems pretty good, forcing your opponents to either sacrifice non-token creatures or lose lots of life depending on how many instants or sorceries you have in your graveyard. Um, I'm not huge on Surveil because you're putting stuff in your graveyard, but this has a potential to put instants or sorceries in your graveyard to then do more damage until this guy's dealt with. Um, I prefer Scry over Surveil just because you don't need something to potentially grab some good cards from your graveyard. You're just scrying, you're putting it potentially at the bottom of your library instead of in your graveyard. But obviously, there's ways to build around that to, um, and Surveil is great for cards like this that care about stuff being in the graveyard, but um, I'd rather have stuff in my library, build a good deck that I could potentially be excited about every card I could potentially be drawing. Astrologian's Planisphere. It's a artifact equipment for one in a island. Job select. When this equipment enters, create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token, then attach this to it. Equipped creature is a wizard in addition to other types and has, whenever you cast a non creature spell and whenever you draw your third card each turn, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Diana, equip 2. I mean, it seems kind of odd that, you know, a few of these equipment um, equipments have names for something and then it's just explaining that the equip cost. It seems like you're trying to take something from the Final Fantasy theme and just say, okay, make this fit. We're gonna call it XYZ. That's the equip cost. It almost feels a little forced to me. Reaper's Scythe. It's an artifact equipment. Job select. At the beginning of your end step, put a soul counter on this equipment for each player who lost life this turn. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each soul counter on this equipment and is an assassin in addition to its other types. Death Sickle, equip 2. Transpose. It's an instant for 2 in the swamp. Draw a card, then discard a card. You lose 1 life. If this spell was cast from your hand, create a 0/1 black wizard creature token. Wiz. Whenever you cast a non creature spell, this token deals 1 damage to each opponent. Rebound. If you cast this spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost. So I don't know why you would want to cast it from exile if you could cast it from your hand instead to get the token that does damage when you're casting non creature spells, which a lot of these cards so far tonight seem to care about non creature spells. So, um, Erdebert, Warrior of Darkness. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, a spirit warrior for 1 plains in a swamp. Whenever you cast a white spell, put a 1/1 counter on each legendary creature you control. They gain vigilance until end of turn. Whenever you cast a black spell, put a 1/1 counter on each legendary creature you control. They gain mass until end of turn. So that's actually pretty cool because all the creatures we've talked about tonight seem to be legendary, so everything's just gonna keep getting pumped and getting some sort of a keyword until end of turn. Hopefully, where this is a white black that pumps either white or black creatures. Hopefully, we'll see, a blue black or a blue white version of this, but still have a lot of cards, so who knows? Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Emmett, south of the third seat. It's a 3/4 legendary creature, an elder wizard. For 2, island in a swamp. Spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast. Whenever one or more opponents lose life, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Do this only once each turn. I mean, that's still pretty good to be able to cast stuff from your graveyard. I mean, yes, you're exiling it once you do that, but um, with how much stuff potentially could put stuff into your graveyard to be able to have access to even one spell a turn to kind of replay stuff. Estinian Verilinu. It's a 3/3 legendary creature, an elf warrior for 2, a plains, and a swamp. Whenever you cast a non creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on Estinian Verilin. It gains flying until end of turn. At the beginning of your second main phase, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of your opponents who were dealt combat damage by Estinian Velda or a dragon this turn. So, I mean, it gets pumped and has the potential to gain flying until end of turn. Then you draw X cards. Yes, you're losing X life, which is kind of a drawback, but um, being able to draw, multiple cards after pumping this guy, I kind of expect to see a little bit of a drawback, I guess. This one's one of the um, split cards where it has an adventure, but it also has a creature. The instant adventure is Gentleman's Rise, which is 2 in a swamp. Create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. The reminder text says, then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. And the creature part is called Hilleburn Manderville. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, a human detective for 1, and the planes. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1. When Hillebrand Manderville dies, you may cast it from your graveyard as an adventure until end of your the end of your next turn, which is kind of interesting because most of these you can't play the adventure once you play the creature. And this creature specifically says once the creature dies, you can play the adventure part, which then once you play the adventure, it gets exiled to then be able to play the creature, which almost seems broken and like you could um, abuse that if your opponent doesn't have a way to interrupt that loop, if you will. Cryo Bander Banderson. It's a 2/1 legendary creature for a plains and an island. Has lifelink. Tyrase Aether. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may return target creature card with mana value equal to the spell's mana value from your graveyard to your hand. Do this only once per turn. So, earlier we had a creature that you were able to cast non creature spells from your graveyard. This creature allows you to return a creature to your hand based on the mana value of a non creature spell you're casting. I mean, both cards that are letting you do stuff from your graveyard only allow you to do it once per turn, but grabbing an instant or sorcery from, or casting one instant or sorcery from your graveyard and grabbing one creature from your graveyard to put it to your hand per turn. I mean, one of each is still pretty good. Weiss Hexed. It's a 2/2 legendary creature. A human rebel monk for one plains and a island. Has prowess. The reminder text says whenever you cast a non creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I mean, prowess can be fun if you have the mana to play multiple spells per turn, but the drawback is the buff, the +1/+1, is only until end of turn, and it's only +1/+1 for each non-creature spell. So you'd have, maybe, this guy's a 2/2, so maybe cast 5 spells, non-creature spells, to make this guy 7/7. So we can see how it might take a little bit to pump this guy enough to maybe not die to something, as long as your opponent doesn't have like Death Touch or Indestructible. If it's just a normal creature, it might take a lot to pump this guy. Non-creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, so I mean, yeah, you're playing your non-creature spells cheaper to get the buff from the prowess, but I don't know. Could go either way. It's still a cheap, 2/2 though that has decent stuff. So could go either way. As long as you've cast 2 or more non-creature spells this turn, Weiss Hexed has double strike. So right there, that makes it worth it. Because from prowess, um, 2 spells make turns a 2/2 into a 4/4 to then give it double strike. Yeah, I should have finished reading the whole card before, kind of being on the fence about that card, I guess. Papelmo Totolimo. It's a 1/2 legendary creature, a dwarf wizard for plains and a swamp. Whenever you cast a non creature spell, Papelmo Totolimo deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. You can pay 4 tap this guy, sacrifice Papelimo, Tolimo. Each opponent who lost life this turn sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. So, not only is it a life drain for your opponent, life gain for you type card, based on you playing non creature spells, but it also has the ability to sacrifice this to make your opponent sacrifice most um, their creature with their highest power, I guess, because they're saying their most powerful creature could be speculative, but it's the creature with um, greatest power among creatures they control. Uringer Augeralt. It's a 1/3 legendary creature, an elf advisor for a plains and an island. Whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, you gain 2 life. Draw Acurum, tap, look at the top card of your library. You may exile it face down. Play Acurum, tap, until end of turn you may play cards exiled with Urgula Agulent. Spells you cast this way cost 2 less to cast. I mean, I could go either way on this because you're exiling stuff to then play it from exile. Like, yes, things um, cast that way cost 2 less, but you have to tap and untap this stuff to. So if you don't have a way to untap him, you're potentially either exiling something or playing something from exile once a turn to then wait until your next turn if you don't have a way to untap it to tap it again. Arkaramer's map. It's an artifact for 2 in the plains. Whenever this artifact enters, search your library for up to 2 basic playing cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. Whenever a land an opponent controls enters, if that player controls more land than you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. I mean, it's an artifact that you use to thin your deck by robbing basic planes and putting them into your hand. Yes, if your opponent's playing a land and they have more land than you get to play another land. So, kind of good if this stays on the battlefield and your opponent's ahead of you, but if your opponent removes this, it might as well have been an instant or sorcery that search for those 2 basic lands at that point. Authority of the councils. It's an enchantment for a plains. Creatures your opponents control enter tapped. Whenever a creature an opponent controls enters, you gain a life. So I run into this card, I don't want to say a lot, but a handful of times when I play on Magic the Gathering Arena. It just seems like one of those cards that is cheap because it's a single planes, and it has um, two kind of drawbacks for your opponents. First, their creatures are tapped. Second, you're gaining a life whenever your opponent plays a creature. So, I mean, unless your opponent plays enchantment removal, you're putting them kind of behind. I mean, yes, if a creature doesn't have haste, um, your opponent's not going to attack with the creature they play that turn anyway, but even just having it enter tapped and not be able to block when you attack them, not having that additional creature to block with can work against your opponents. Cleansing Nova. It's a sorcery for 3 and 2 planes. Choose one. Destroy all creatures or destroy all artifacts and enchantments. That's kind of interesting that we were talking about an enchantment that if your opponent doesn't have a way to remove and then you get board wipe, that could be either for creatures or it could be for artifacts and enchantments. Um, Likely, um, you're gonna want this if you're running against a shrine deck. Um, Otherwise, you're probably using the board wipe to level the battlefield as far as creatures. Especially if you run into an opponent that maybe has a token deck that just gets out of hand quick. Final Judgment. It's a sorcery for 4 and 2 planes. Exile all creatures. I mean, it costs one more than the last board wipe and only affects creatures. You don't have the option to choose between either creatures or artifacts and enchantments, so could go either way. But where it exiles instead of destroys, um, if your opponent has ways to grab stuff from the graveyard, you're saying, nope, exile instead of graveyard. Archmage Emeritus. It's a 2/2 creature, a human wizard for 2 and 2 islands. Kind of surprising because it feels like 99% of the creatures in this deck are legendary, and this is one of the only ones I offhand recall not being legendary. There might have been some, and I'm just not recalling the other ones. Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. So if you have ways to copy spells, um, this would really get out of hand because not only are you drawing a card when you're casting stuff, but then if you can copy stuff, you're benefiting from um, basically playing multiple copies of something, but then also multiple draws from, um, you know, casting stuff multiple times. Dig Through Time. It's an instant for 6 and 2 islands. Delve. Each card you exile from your graveyard while casting this spell pays for 1. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So, depending on what you have in your top of your library, this could be good, or you could get the two best cards of seven crappy cards. Just depends on how good the deck is. Obviously, there's some decent stuff in this deck, um, but then it also depends on how things are ordered. You might be looking for something else and not get what you're looking for. So maybe if you have a way to scry a certain amount of cards, you could move cards to the bottom in the hopes of getting other cards to look at using this, maybe. Rite of Replication. It's a sorcery for 2 and 2 islands with a kicker of 5. You may pay an additional 5 as you cast a spell. Create a token that's a copy of target creature. If this spell was kicked, create 5 of those tokens instead. So I vaguely remember winning a game of Arena because of this card. I don't remember what I targeted, but I paid the kicker to make 5 um, tokens of some creature that was on the battlefield. And I think, I either, by targeting that creature, I either tapped 5 of my opponent's creatures or returned 5 of my opponent's creatures to their hand or something that basically my opponent wasn't going to be able to block. And then after making those tokens and either tapping their creatures or returning their creatures to the hand, whatever it was, I swung with what creatures I had available to do lethal. So it was just a matter of good timing. Hey, I have the open mana, and now you have nothing to block with swing. Like, just walk that, I was able to play that at the right time. Sublime Epiphany. Epiphany. Probably mispronouncing that. It's a instant for 4 and 2 islands. Choose one or more. And I mean, where it's 6, it's kind of like or more. You kind of want to be able to do that if applicable. So the options are counter target spell, counter target activated or triggered ability, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, or target player draws a card. So you have 5 possible things you could be doing, and it says choose one or more. So theoretically, you could play this card for all 5, but maybe there's times that you won't need to counter an activated or triggered ability, or maybe there's not a time you would want to create a token. Like, there's times you might not use every possible thing. Crotallion Gear Hulk. It's a 5/6 artifact creature, a construct for 4 and 2 islands. It has flash. Whenever this creature enters, you may cast target instant card from your library, or sorry, from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If this spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So, uh, 5/6 that you're casting an instant from your graveyard for free. Like, yes, you're exiling the instant when you cast it, but a 5/6 and casting a instant from your graveyard, that's well worth the 6 mana cost. If your opponent knows what it is, they'll probably try to find a way to deal with that. You know, either counter it or, well, I guess if they don't counter it once it hits, you're casting the instant, so they not sure how they would deal with that. If you um, Crux of Fate, it's a sorcery for 3 and 2 swamps. Choose one, destroy all dragon creatures, or destroy all non-dragon creatures. So it's a board wipe that is pretty niche. It's pretty specific that you're either destroying all dragons or all non-dragons, depending on what you choose. Um, so I guess it depends on what kind of stuff you have out, what kind of stuff your opponent has out, what your good board wipe, I guess. Lethal Scheme. It's an instant for 2 and 2 swamps. Convoke. The reminder text says you may your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting this spell pays for 1 or 1 mana of that creature's color. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Each creature that convoked Lethal Scheme um, conveys. Draw a card, then discard a card. If the discard card is a non-land card, put a 1/1 counter on that creature. So a um, not board wipe, but a spot removal that if you convoke, you have a potential to put a 1/1 counter on the creature that convoked, possibly. I don't like the whole draw a card, discard a card, because if you like all the cards in your hand, being forced to discard, but kind of one of those benefit drawback type deals. We have another adventure slash creature card. The instant adventure is called Swift End. It costs 1 and 2 swamps. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. You lose 2 life. The reminder text says, then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. The creature is called Murderous Rider. It's a 2/3 creature, a zombie knight for 1 and 2 swamps. So kind of interesting that the instant and the creature has the same mana cost. Has lifelink. Whenever this creature dies, put it on the battlefield of it. Put it on the bottom of its owner's library. I initially was reading it as put it on the battlefield, which seems odd. If it was dying, you'd be putting it on the battlefield. I guess I'm overly tired if I'm reading things kind of backwards like that. Um, Battleful Strix. It's a 1/1 artifact creature, a bird for a island in a swamp, has flying and death touch. Whenever this creature enters, draw a card. So, I mean, it's a 1/1 for one of two different colors. So, I mean, power and toughness isn't great, but has two keywords, flying, death touch, and lets you draw a card. So that kind of, I guess, negates the low power toughness for the 2 mana. Vindicate. It's a sorcery for 1, a plains in a swamp, destroy target permanent. This seems like Mortify, but this is permanent instead of, I think, Mortify is creature or enchantment, maybe. And I also don't remember if Mortify is an instant or a sorcery. Void Rend. It's an instant for a plains, a island, and a swamp. This spell can't be countered. Destroy target non-land permanent. So I mean, we're seeing 2 back-to-back removal spells. This one, it's 3 mana types instead of 1 generic and 2 mana types, to have the benefit of not being able to be countered. Coveted Jewel. It's an artifact for 6. When this artifact enters, draw 3 cards. Tap to add 3 mana of any one color. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attacks you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of this artifact. Untap it. So, I mean, could go either way. You're drawing 3 cards and using it as a mana rock to tap for 3 of one color. Drawback is if you're not blocking your opponent's creatures, you're giving this to your opponent. So I guess, 2 good parts to have a little bit of a drawback, I guess. Tomb of Legends. It's an artifact for 2. This artifact enters with a page counter on it. Whenever your commander enters or attacks, put a page counter on this artifact. Tap 1 or pay 1 and tap. Remove a page counter from this artifact. Draw a card. I feel like I've played either a Brawl deck or a Commander deck that had this in the past month or two, and I kept forgetting to put the page counters on it because I just had so much else on the battlefield. It was like one more thing to remember, I guess. I mean, I was playing a casual game with a friend, so I didn't really need something extra to draw a card, but this seems like it could be helpful. Playing your commander and or attacking to add a counter to then pay a mana and tap it to tap this artifact to draw a card. When you're getting down to like no cards or 1 card, that extra draw could potentially um, shift a game. Choked estuary. The land. Uh, as as this land enters, you may reveal an island or swamp card from your hand. If you don't, this land enters tapped. Tap to add a island or a swamp. Darkwater Catacombs. It's a land that you pay one and tap to add a island and a swamp. So you're paying one mana to get two mana, and it's like two different colors. So um, decent. Desolate Mire. So same idea, different color combo. Um, Pay one and tap to add a plains and a swamp. Ground Catacomb. The land. This land enters tapped unless you control an island or swamp. Tap to add a island or swamp. Exotic Orchard. The land. Tap. Add one mana of any color a land an opponent controls could produce. Fetid Heath. To land. Tap to add a it's the like waste symbol or a colorless symbol, and then you can pay either it's a like split pipe, either a plains or a swamp and tap, add two plains or a plains and a swamp or two swamps. So you're paying one of either a plains or a swamp to get two plains, a plains and a swamp, or two swamps. So, it's like, you know, the one earlier that was like one generic to get two. In this case, it's one basic to get some combination of two basics. Glacial Fortress. This land enters tapped unless you control a plains or an island. Tap to add a plains or island. Isolated Chapel. This land enters tapped unless you control a plains or swamp. Tap to add a plains or swamp. Port Town. As this land enters, you may reveal a plains or island card from your hand. If you don't, this land enters tapped. Tap to add a plains or island. Prairie Stream. It's a land, but it specifically mentions plains or island in the land typing section, so you could search for this. Tap to add a plains or island. This land enters tapped unless you control two or more basic lands. Scavenger Grounds. It's a land desert. Tap to add a colorless. Tap 2 and tap. Sacrifice a desert. Exile all graveyards. So, I mean, obviously, you're exiling everything in your graveyard, which is a drawback, but depending on what your opponent has in their graveyard, obviously, that could outweigh exiling your own graveyard. Shine Shadow Snarl. As this land enters, you may reveal a plains or swamp card from your hand. If you don't, this land enters tapped. Tap to add a plains or swamp. Sky Cloud Expanse. Tap one in this land to add a plains and an island. Sunken Hollow. It's in the land type. It mentions island and swamp, so you could search for one of those, or search for this if it mentions one of those types. Um, Tap to add a island or swamp. This land enters tapped unless you control two or more basic lands. Sunken Ruins. Tap to add a colorless, or um, you pay. It's a split pipe, so you could pay either an island or a swamp and tap this to get two islands, or one island, one swamp, or two swamps. Underground River. Tap to add a colorless, or tap to add a island or a swamp. This land deals one damage to you. My friend kind of hates these kind of lands. There's also artifacts that are basically the same idea, that's tap for a colorless or tap for one of two colors and it deals one damage to you. I mean, in Commander, you start with 4 life, so having access to the color you need can potentially be worth out, you know, one damage depending on the situation. White Aura Sight. It's an artifact for 2 planes. When this artifact enters, exile a target non-land permanent an opponent controls until this artifact leaves the battlefield. Tap to add a planes. So not only is it not really removal, just you're kind of stalling your opponent from using something that was already on the battlefield. Um, I want to say it was called Detain, and as a mechanic, like a decade or so ago, but I can't remember for sure. But it also doubles as a mana rock. Obviously, there's removal spells, so if this gets removed, your opponent gets their permanent back. Sage's Nolith. It's an artifact equipment for one and an island. Job select. When this equipment enters, create a 1/1 colorless hero token, then attach this to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has, whenever this creature attacks, untap target attacking creature, and is a cleric in addition to its other types. Haganaka, equip 3. So I feel like I was talking about a a creature that tapped for two different things and was saying, it would need something to maybe untap it. This equipment would be that, you attach it to whatever that creature was. You tap. Well, I guess that wouldn't really work because this is only when it's this creature attacks. So, I guess you'd still need another card that does something similar, but isn't attached to attacking. Circle of Power. It's a sorcery for 3 and a swamp. You draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. create a 0/1 Black Wizard creature token Wiz. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this token deals 1 damage to each opponent. Wizards you control get +1/+0 and gain lifelink until end of turn. So I feel like there's another card that created one of those 0/1 tokens that ping your opponent, but this also gives wizards +1/+0 and lifelink until end of turn, so kind of nice. Cut a deal. It's a sorcery for 2 and a plains. Each opponent draws a card. Then you draw a card for each opponent who drew a card this way. Commander can be about politics, so that has the potential to draw you some cards depending on how many people are playing. Lingering Souls. It's a sorcery for 2 in the plains. Create 2/1/1 spirit creature tokens with flying. The flashback is 1 in a swamp. The reminder text says you may cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, then exile it. Swords to Plowshare. It's an instant for a plains. Exile a target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. I mean, one of those removal spells that is cheap, but your opponent's gaining life, so a little bit of a drawback, but can be worth it. Have another split card. The instant adventure is Mesmic Lair for 2 and an island. Counter target spell with mana value 3 or less. Then exile this card. You may cast a creature later from exile. The creature is Hypnotic Sprite. It's a 2/1 creature, a fairy for 2 islands. It has flying. So a 2/1 flyer for 2 is a little underwhelming, but the other part of the card is a counter, so could go either way. Depends on what you need. Into the story. It's an instant for 5 and 2 islands. This spell costs 3 less to cast if an opponent has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. Draw 4 cards. So drawing 4 but costing 7 seems like a lot. But if you wait until your opponent has 7 or more cards instead in their graveyard, and that instead of costing 7, it would cost 4. So, at that point, it's 1 mana for every card you're drawing. Propaganda. It's an enchantment for 2 in the island. Creatures can't attack unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. So forces your opponents to pay mana to attack you for each creature they're using. So I mean that's distinct for your opponents if they rely heavily on creatures, if it's a token deck or something. But then again, you just need 1 big stompy guy, especially if it has trample, to start dealing with stuff. So guess it depends on how you build your deck and or how much disposable mana you have. But Bastion of Remembrance, it's an enchantment for 2 in a swamp. Whenever this enchantment enters, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. When a creature you control dies, your opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So I personally like stuff that drains your opponent's life and gains you life. Obviously, there's other win conditions other than just getting your opponent down to 0, but um, anything to kind of hurt your opponent and benefit you is always nice. Exandra Grenade. It's a sorcery that costs X and 2 swamps. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. So another good card for draining your opponent's life and gaining some life. Snuff Out. It's an instant for 3 in a swamp. If you control a swamp, you may pay 4 life rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. Siphon Mind. It's a sorcery for 3 in a swamp. Each other player discards a card. You draw a card for each card discarded this way. Arcane Signet seems like a staple in most commander decks. It's an artifact for 2. Tap to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity. Relic of Legends. It's an artifact for 3. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Tap an untapped legendary creature you control. Add 1 mana of any color. With how many legendary creatures are in this deck, it's not going to be hard to tap creatures for mana if you have this out. Soul Ring. Again, another staple in Brawl or Commander decks. It's an artifact for 1. Tap to add 2 mana. Well, colorless mana. Talisman of Dominance. So earlier I had a land that was tap to add for colorless or tap to add for 1 or 2 colors and it dealt damage. The talismans were the artifact that kind of went with those lands. This is an artifact that costs 2. Tap to add 1 colorless or tap to so Talisman of Dominance is tap to add 1 colorless, like I said, or you could tap to add a island or swamp. This artifact deals 1 damage to you. Talisman of Hierarchy, so different name, different color combination. It's an artifact for 2. Tap to add a colorless, or you could tap to add a plains or swamp. This artifact deals 1 damage to you. Talisman of Progress. Again, different name, different color combo. Artifact for 2, tap to add 1 colorless, or tap to add a plains or an island. This artifact deals 1 damage to you. Thought Vessel. It's an artifact for 2. You have no maximum hand size, which a few cards in this deck draw you cards, so having no maximum hand size is nice. Tap to add a colorless. Arcane Sanctum. It's a trinome. This land enters tapped. Tap to add a plains or an island or a swamp. Um, I mean, we had all the, maybe not all the dual lands, but a lot of the like more modern dual lands for the color combo, so it made sense to have the trinome for this. Ash Barrens, tap to add a colorless. Basic land cycling 1. You could pay 1, discard this card, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Command Tower. Again, another staple in Brawl or Command. Tap to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity. Contaminated Aquifer. It mentions island or swamp in the land type. Tap to add a swamp, island or swamp. This land enters tapped. Demoralization Field. Tap to add a colorless or pay 2, tap, sacrifice this land. Destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. That land's controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. You may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Um, so, I mean, kind of a trade-off. You know, yes, you're getting rid of a opponent's land that might be annoying, but then each of you are getting a basic land from your library. Evolving Wilds, kind of one of those thinning the deck, get a specific land card you need, I guess. Sacrifice this land, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. I guess not the land you need, just color fixing in addition to thinning your deck. Idyllic Beachfront mentions plains and islands on the typing in addition to mentioning it's a land. Tap to add a plains or an island. This land enters tapped. Passive Ancestry. This land enters tapped. Tap to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity. When that mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. The reminder text says, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom. Sunlit Marsh. In the land type, it mentions plain swamps. Tap to add a plain or a swamp. This land enters tapped. Temple of False Gods. Of the False God. Tap to add 2 colorless. Activate only if you control 5 or more lands. Then we get to some of the basic lands. There are 4 planes. You have 2 of one style artwork, 1 of a second style artwork, and 1 of a third style artwork for your planes. You have 3 different islands, you know, each with their own artwork. Then you have 4 swamps, so 2 of the first style artwork, 1 of the second style artwork, and 1 of the third style artwork. And then we get to the tokens. So front you have a hero, 1/1 hero with no keywords. Back is a 1/1 spirit with flying. Again, another 1/1 hero. Back is 1/1 flying spirit. Um, Third token is 1/1 hero, with the back being a 1/1 flying vigilance bird. Fourth token is a 1/1 hero, with the back being the 1/1 flying vigilance bird. Um, Fifth is 1/1 um, hero, the back being a 0/1 wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell token, this token deals 1 damage to each opponent. Um, Another token that was hero was the wizard on back. Um, then we have a hero token with a human soldier on the back. Uh, Another hero with a soldier on back. And then you have 2 tokens for um, Mogul on the front. One of them has a treasure on the back, the other one has a zombie on the back. And then we have a card at the end that's not really a card, it just tells you popular magic formats and what you can do on your turn. So hopefully you found some value in this. I know it was a long video, so maybe I'll break this down into more videos, but thanks for watching and have a good day.